So hello everybody and a very, very warm welcome to this very special Fringe event as part of UK Fintech Week. My name's Julia Street and I'm the founder and the CEO of a fintech consultancy called Streets Consulting. Basically what we do is we help fintechs to grow. And one of the reasons why I'm particularly interested in this conversation is because we've been very committed to the national agenda. I have team members all over the UK. For me, since I set up my business some 14 years ago, we have had consultants all over the UK. We have clients all over the UK and we have clients all over the world. So international clients wanting to do business in the UK, UK businesses with a very much an international ambition as well. That's what we do all day. So it's our pleasure to bring together this event with some leading lights right the way across the UK, offering thoughts, insights. It's an opportunity for them to think about the engagement that they're actively involved in, their ambition, and also give you a little sense of progress and what they're up to as well. We've divided this session into two sections. In the first part, we're going to bring in some speakers to talk about some of the regional activity and also from a pan-UK point of view, thinking also about international trade. So bring in 5 guests at that point. Then we're going to go into part 2, where we're going to bring some of the regional practitioners in to talk about what it's really like doing business across the UK as well. And then we're going to open up for Q&A. You'll see there's a Q&A function on the platform. So do please, as we're going through, post any questions you may have. We'll take all the questions at the end, but we're very keen to make sure we get to address them as well. So let me get straight into it. This is all about regional fintech engagement, progress, ambition, and it gives me great pleasure to welcome our first 5 guests. I'm going to ask them to switch their cameras on, and they're going to be here for you. So first of all, Peter Cunnane from Innovate Finance. We also have Rebecca O'Connor, Head of Fintech and Innovation at the DIT. Julian Wells, Director of Whitecap Consulting. Hilary Smyth-Allen, Lead Exec for SuperTech West Midlands. And Stuart Harrison from FinTech West. So thank you all so much for joining us. What I would like to make it clear is what this is not. This is not a pitting region against region. We are instead here to champion and support all the amazing initiatives that are happening. The best way to start that, of course, is to turn the platform to Peter. So Peter from Innovate Finance, I'm going to turn to you. Love to hear what you're particularly focused on in terms of promoting the fintech industry across the UK. And particularly, obviously, when we think about the Kalifa review, what are you most optimistic about?
Oh, thank you, Julia, and thank you everyone for being there this morning. I mean, for us and for Innovate Finance, and for those of you that don't know Innovate Finance, we're the UK's leading trade organisation for the global fintech sector, based here in the UK, and we do have members overseas as well. And we work very closely with a number of the organisations, both on this screen and off the screen, to work together to push forward with the national promotion and agenda and feed into the policy and scene setting for the fintech sector. I mean, we work very closely with all our regional partners, with Department of International Trade, to ensure that we're getting the right policy and regulatory mix in support of what's been a fantastic economic story for the UK in recent years. And even over the last 12 months, it's been obviously a very challenging time for many across the economy and wider society. But during that time, obviously, what we've wanted to do is support our startups and our scale-ups in particular, and some of those high growths as well, who have stepped in to really help out business, whether it's through SME lending and payments, and contributed to keeping the economy going. And what we've done at Innovate Finance over the last year to do that is to work closely with government and with others to ensure that the economy does keep moving, and that those opportunities for growth as we come out of this coronavirus period are still there. And I know we're going to be focusing more on international trade in the moment, but I think now is a really exciting time. There's a lot of opportunities internationally for businesses right across the UK to take advantage of. And on the Kalifa review, as you mentioned, Julia, it's quite an opportune moment for us to also have a bit of a deeper dive into the strategic roadmap for the sector. And the Kalifa review, led by Kalifa, of course, aimed to do exactly that, and I think it has. And the response this week during UK Fintech Week from government has been great. I mean, we had the announcement on Monday from the Chancellor around tech visas, which we hope to be enabled in the next 12 months. Support for something called the Centre for Innovation and Technology, or CFIT, which will have a key role for national and international players in there as well. Many recommendations from across the review will be implemented, particularly around the investment piece and support for growth capital. Also great news on the Lord Hill listings review as well alongside that. And we heard from the Economic Secretary yesterday on the importance of skills, and I think that has a particular importance to a national conversation. Much of the depth of skills and talent in fintech is away from London and the South East, and it's in centres around the UK, such as Leeds, Manchester, Birmingham, Bristol, Bath, and others. Many places around the UK where there is a strong academic centre, in Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland too. So there's a lot we can be proud to promote there too. And of course, from the international side, and I won't steal Rebecca's thunder on this, but great news from DIT on the Export Champion Scheme as well. That will really make a difference for our scale-ups that are seeking to export, by giving them the expertise and knowledge to do so. So really excited for this week, for some of what we heard this week, and really excited actually for the next 12 months as well.
Peter, what a great way to set us off, and much there not only is picked up throughout the conference, and those of you who have been watching UK Fintech Week content, as I know you can go back and review some of those, and also there are more to come. And in fact, I know that Stuart's going to talk a little bit about an event that's coming up, I believe, tomorrow as well on that. So Peter, thank you for your thoughts on that, and you gave a nod there to DIT and international trade as well, of course, which is a beautiful moment to bring in Rebecca O'Connor, who, as I said, she's the head of FinTech and Innovation at the Department for International Trade. So Rebecca, great to see you. Again, love to hear sort of what you're thinking about, and particularly in order to reap the full potential of international trade, what advice are you giving out to the international clusters?
Thank you so much, Julia. Hello everyone, and thank you for inviting me to be part of such an important panel and discussion. And yeah, I'd be delighted to discuss the ways in which DIT are working with our regional clusters to support UK fintech scale and grow overseas, which is very much our bread and butter in the Department of International Trade. It may come as no surprise, but I'm a regional gal myself. I'm from North East England, and I've held numerous regional posts in DIT before joining our financial and professional services team. So it truly is a delight and privilege to be leading our regional fintech strategy in DIT, and it's a subject that's really close to my heart. So I think firstly, it's so important to recognise the diversity of support that's already available across the UK. We've heard across the last few days, and we will continue to hear, UK fintechs are almost spoilt for choice when accessing trade support services in each of the regional clusters. Options range from LEPs to trade associations, centres for excellence, and of course, our local DIT trade offices. And you may have seen a couple of weeks ago, DIT announced that we're going to be launching a range of new DIT hubs in our devolved administrations. So the support is there. So there's so much opportunity for international trade, but every international opportunity is different. And exporting is a bespoke and very personal journey for UK fintechs. And what we want to do with DIT is work with our regional colleagues and networks to make that journey as streamlined, accessible, and enjoyable as possible. Exporting is an exciting, enjoyable journey, and we want to be taking UK fintechs on that journey in the most stress-free way possible. So over the last couple of months, what we've been doing, my team have been working really closely with partners and regional networks just to strengthen our reach across UK regions, to establish the best way that we can add value and work with our national network and support UK fintechs internationalise. DIT haven't got all the answers, and we are a limited team, so it's essential we work closely with partners and all of the fintech experts that are on this call and beyond to help us deliver our ambitions. So this way, in an ideal world, when fintechs reach out to their local fintech support and trade support services, our experts on the ground will know exactly what DIT programme they can advise and support these fintechs best tap into our range of export initiatives. And just kind of to further demonstrate, I suppose, our commitment to strengthening our regional strategy, strengthening our regional reach. A few of you might have seen that we launched our Findexable National Strengths Report 2 days ago. We had a fantastic session on that yesterday at 4 p.m. I'd urge everyone on this call to jump back in and have a little look at that if you didn't manage to catch it. But what that does, it just emphasises the regional clusters that are emerging outside of London, and showcasing the fintech activity which is growing significantly across UK regions, which in turn will support our colleagues overseas. We've got access to 118 posts overseas, so for us it's so important in DIT to be educating our staff in post about all of the opportunities that are available across all four corners of the UK. So speaking of those programmes, I've mentioned these export programmes. DIT's got a wide range of export initiatives available for UK fintechs. I'm going to touch upon 3, but there's a lot more, and I'd urge you to either reach out to me, or reach out to some of your regional fintech colleagues, or just go on gov.uk to find out a little bit more. In December, we partnered, we launched our Leading Edge Global Partnerships Programme. So what that means is we're working very closely with the leading international financial institutions overseas to understand and ascertain what fintech innovation they need. We then work with UK fintechs to match them and create them opportunities to have their discussions and export into key markets. We're working very closely with Peter and his team, as well as City of London, London and Partners, and Tech London Advocates. And of course, as Peter mentioned, and you didn't steal me thunder, Peter, don't worry, we launched on Monday 2 brand new fintech initiatives, which is our Fintech Exporting Academy and our Fintech Champions. You can find out a lot more about them on some of the sessions that we've had over the last couple of weeks. And very, very keen to take any questions. I think I'm just about to run out of time, so I'm keen to take any questions on that, but lots of initiatives available to summarise. Please do reach out to local fintech leaders in your area, and yes, by all means reach out to me, and I'd be happy to discuss in more detail.
Well, Rebecca, your enthusiasm is contagious, it has to be said. So I would refer back to the Findexable report, go to gov.uk, and as you say, reach out, because it sounds like there's an extraordinary amount going on. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Rebecca O'Connor. Now, many of you in the conversation about UK Fintech, a national Fintech agenda, will know this man very, very well. So I'm delighted, actually, we're going to spotlight now Julian Wells, Director of Whitecap Consulting. I'm going to ask Julian, I know, Julian, you're involved with so many Fintech North and Fintech West, etc. I would love you, if you could, to focus your remarks on initiatives in Fintech North. We're going to bring in other colleagues from around the UK as well. And in terms of the developments in Fintech North, thinking also about building on Rebecca's comments about international trade as well. We're really keen to hear some developments you're most proud of, and also a couple of areas of focus for 2021.
Thanks, Julia. Yeah, hi everyone. Great to be part of this session today. I just love it when people put on events and initiatives that focus on the whole of the UK and all the regions. Yeah, through our work at Whitecap, we're involved in regional fintech, as Julia's hinted towards. I don't have loads of time today, so I won't talk about all the work we do at Whitecap. But Fintech North, for those who don't know, is a community of people interested in fintech across the north of England. It's an entity that was set up in 2016. In many ways, it was an accidental creation. It was a one-day event that turned into something that people really got behind and gathered momentum. 5 years later, I think we've done about 75 events now in that time. Had over 4,000 people come along to those events, and we've created a platform to showcase fintech in the north. Anyone who's got a sort of an idea, a startup, we like to put those people on a platform to give them the opportunity to speak and to get feedback, and it's been a great journey over recent years. And while Fintech North's been growing, regional fintech's been growing, and what we've seen over that time is more and more activity across the north, as has been the case in other regions. More startups, more sort of sources of funding becoming available, more interest in fintech from the corporate community, from the higher education establishments, and it's just gained in prominence. And the sector's grown, and there's many stats around that show that. And I think we're now at 11 billion and counting in terms of value. In terms of some of the initiatives that have been really that made us proud, and the links to the international side of things. We've always had a good relationship with DIT. We've been part of a number of, probably about 7 or 8 now, different fintech missions that have either involved fintech companies from other countries coming to the north and trying to understand what the opportunity might be for them in the region, having the chance to meet with potential partners and clients. But also we've worked on outbound missions where UK companies have had the chance to go and explore other ecosystems. And just over recent weeks working with DIT, that's included Australia, Canada, and the United States. And we've done some fascinating events, and it's a real education just learning about all these other fintech ecosystems around the world. Things that have made me proud about what's happened, I just think bringing together that whole northern community is something that when we look at it now, it's difficult to unite the north. People talk about the northern powerhouse, but actually, the north is a group of regions. It really is, and they've all got their own ecosystems, and they've all got their own advocates and their own strengths, and they all plough their own furrow. And what I think we've always managed to do is to not take sides, a bit like you said at the start of the call. We've been for the good of everyone and tried to bring everyone together. I think we've had speakers from 25 different countries in the last 5 years, and I like to think we've never said no to anyone who's wanted to get involved. You don't have to pay to sort of participate to be at the events, and so it's a creative and inclusive community. I think I'm getting close to my time now, so I'll draw it to a close there.
We're on a tight agenda, but it's so inspiring.
Stop going, don't worry.
Yeah, I love it. But it is interesting, isn't it? But how do you kind of hone the conversation into some really key areas? So thank you for talking about the international trade missions. Really interesting to hear about that. And then also thinking about, I think it's a very salient point about, this actually, we put labels on a region, but of course in the region, there are their own clusters and their own communities as well. So thank you so much. Thank you for that, Julian. Julian Wells of Whitecap Consulting. I wish we could talk about Whitecap as well, but no time, sadly. But let's move on then. Hilary Smith-Allen, if I could bring you in here, who is the lead exec of SuperTech West Midlands as well. Very keen to hear about what you're doing in the West Midlands. I'm going to ask you actually and it's designed to avoid any repetition, because I'm sure there's much in all of the regions that is similar, such as international trade, such as supporting of fintechs, etc. But particularly thinking about a lean to skills. And I'd love to hear about a couple of developments you're most proud of, and also your kind of key areas of focus for 2021.
Thank you, Julia. Thanks for having me. So SuperTech, we are the new kids on the block, it's fair to say, but just because we're new in the cluster national network, and pleased to have been formally announced as having joined or having participated for a little bit longer, we're trying to do our bit and really bring together what is an established hub as recognised in the Kalifa review. So whilst we're new in doing things in this organised way, we're quite advanced in many respects in terms of fintech and other bits. SuperTech is a little different. We use the umbrella term PropTech. PropTech for us encompasses fintech plus insurtech, lawtech, proptech as our priority areas at the moment. And that really reflects two things. One is the size and the nature of our economic geography. The financial and professional services businesses here represent about a third of the West Midlands. The West Midlands in itself is over 100 billion economy. So it is a bit too siloed for us just to sit in one space, but also the high network, the highly integrated nature, but also recognising the fact that technology is disrupting those silos in itself by the nature of what we're doing here is change of the establishment. So whilst we've got that really core established sector, where we're seeing technology and the new businesses arising is in those interfaces. So some of our core members are, they will be open about the fact that they're a fintech one day and a prop tech next day because they're doing real estate finance. And actually that's why we've adopted this slightly broader approach, but given the space for each of the verticals, in fintech particularly, to do that, reflecting that there are different levels of maturity. And so fintech is more advanced, but we think that the line of trajectory is very similar in some of those other disciplines. And we want to enable the sharing of that learning across it. So that's something that is a differentiator for us, but where we can actively participate in numerous fields and really contribute to, as the others have said before us, to this UK proposition. You know, it is West Midlands. It's about supporting our businesses here, but we have to have an eye to the world. And particularly post EU exit and all the other challenges that are going on right now with recovery or forward thinking global Britain initiatives. It's about the UK proposition overall. So we as SuperTech are really proud to be part of that and thinking about how do we advance that, how do we work collectively, and it's really interesting, particularly my English colleagues or regions represented here today, because I think it is very different for us alongside the devolved nations, and how do we respond and how do we leverage that to contribute, because it's a different makeup in terms of our ecosystems, the levers that we have, the funding mechanisms that we have, how we work with different departments. So yeah, the strength of the national network is really key here to realising that vision. In terms of the skills question and things we're proud of, they're probably pretty interlinked, Julia. We can only do so much through inward investment, and you know we really pride ourselves with the relationship that we're building with London from the start, that if London gains, we all gain. It's not a zero-sum game. It's not about displacement, but there are only so many to go around. And whilst we can do certain bits around inward investment, etc., the statistic that keeps me awake at night is this average age of the fintech founder being about 48. And the research says by Whitecap and others, that's not a West Midlands phenomenon, that's quite standard. It's around that age. It's around that age in law tech and prop tech. And it's about resilience, personal ambition, access to resources to start to take that leap to find new businesses. So we're really proud of our work and investment today in no code, which we see as a way of democratizing and opening up so that more founders can come through, that we can feed that pipeline of new businesses. No code is, for those that don't know, is a way of building MVPs really quickly. So fail fast, learn quick, all of that. And then that way we can feed the accelerator system, which is so established, you know, all the stuff that's gone before. There is a lot of support once you get going. But if the average age is so high, then there's only so much we can do. And so we're planning some growth around that to build new businesses and also to make people more employable. Even if you don't go on through a no-code boot camp to found a business, then hopefully you are therefore more employable because you can express your ideas, etc. And we're working with established businesses equally to build that. So they're my key thoughts. I know Joff will talk a little bit more about that in the second half. So I was
going to say we're going to get into a million labs later about the low code, actually, which is really interesting. So Hilary, Smyth, Anna, thank you very much for your thoughts on that, on the SuperTech West Midlands, and thank you for explaining how the SuperTech kind of comes together as well. And last but no means least, in this section of the discussion is Stuart Harrison from FinTech West. So Stuart, you've been listening very patiently to your colleagues around the UK as well. Again, it's a similar question to you, really, because when we think about developments you're most proud of, but I wonder if I could ask you to address your comments with a lean towards national collaboration, and then also love to hear about a couple of areas of focus for this year.
Okay, thanks Julian. Hi everyone. And just to echo Julian's comments, I'd like to say it's great to see this collaboration happening and for all of us to be sharing a stage. And it was only when I was thinking about this, I realized that actually, interestingly, FinTech West was founded from regional collaboration. When I first set up FinTech West, which had evolved from the, shall we say, loose collective that was Bristol FinTech, I was keen, obviously, to learn what worked or not from other regions. And believe it or not, the closest region to us that was operational at the time was FinTech North. So I reached out and spoke to and asked a lot of questions of Julian and Whitecap and FinTech North on how they ran things, and consequently suggested that we work more closely together. And it's been a great relationship because being able to share and solve issues collectively makes for obviously a much more effective solution for all parties. But now, of course, we regularly speak to all the other regional FinTech organizations. I've had conversations with all of them in recent weeks. We regularly share notes as part of the FinTech National Network, which is a very useful body to be part of. And of course, I should welcome SuperTech West Midlands to the FinTech National Network, and of course for plugging the hole that was there between the West and the North. So as to things I'm proud of, I've got to say, I'm actually obviously proud of the fact that we've helped get Bristol and Bath on the FinTech map as a cluster, which has been achieved with a lot of hard work and basically zero resources. And I know each region's had similar challenges, but there are unique properties. And I'd like to think at FinTech West with an active advisory board and research projects and forming a FinTech educational mentoring program where we're adding good value to the region. And certainly it's very satisfying to see FinTechs in the region grow from an idea and then expand into employ significant numbers of people. So we've got a good set of homegrown FinTech stories, which I won't go into any detail. We do have an event tomorrow, which Julia mentioned, which is focusing on the FinTech West cluster and how we evolved, which will go into more detail. But some of our homegrown FinTechs, such as Money Hub, Tumelo and Lockbox, are well known around the country. Of course, we also love to see London-based expansion, such as ClearBank here, or Manchester's push on e-commerce expanding into the region and so on. And of course, some of our earlier FinTechs, before FinTech was even invented, so to speak, such as Credit Core and Brightpearl, have become international successes. So along with all the regions, we're also attracting and speaking with various international operations, partners and agencies in order to provide growth opportunities for our own businesses, as well as for overseas ones to obviously land and expand here. I think one of the things I'd like to highlight on is the education element, which is very important. We've always had some good connections with higher education, and that obviously was highlighted by the Kalifa report as a key component of cluster capability. It's actually probably 3 years since I first spoke to the University of West of England about setting up a FinTech MSc, and although that was delayed by lockdown, the course launched earlier this year, and it's been the most successful new MSc they've ever had, with 60 students signed up. We've also got the University of Bristol shortly launching their FinTech MSc, but that's a little bit more focused around data science. And in fact, for several months now, we've been working with the University of Bristol, and in particular, Professor John Beaverstock, on a project looking at learning from London in order to help expand the cluster here, based around his prior research and work he did for the City of London Corporation. So that's been particularly useful for our strategy moving forward, such that I'd like to say we were Kalifa report compatible before the Kalifa report, but now we seek to, especially as FinTech's even more visible across the region, help connect the whole FinTech supply chain in our role as ecosystem facilitator, from education, financial services, technology funding, all sources. And I do have to say this also includes not just Bristol and Bath, but the wider Southwest in a sort of federated style by building on the strong technology network that already exists here.
So, Stuart, I'm sorry to have to cut across you, but it's
Right,
the obvious wonderful thing about all these conversations is just how much deeper we could go. But thank you for all your thoughts on that. It's fantastic. And also to hear about the importance of the national collaboration as well. So listen, I just want to take a moment to thank all of our opening speakers for explaining what you're focused on, what you're doing, and what you're incredibly proud of, which really, really matters. What I'd love to do now is invite you to switch off your camera. So we're going to bring in three practitioners. Let's call it the practitioners section, if you like. So I'm going to welcome David Henderson from Hargreaves Lansdown from FinTech West, Richard Carter, who is from Equiniti Credit Services, FinTech North, and Geoff Waters, Million Labs, SuperTech West Midlands. So welcome the three of you. Very keen to ask each of you, from having heard comments of the panel, what should we be particularly paying attention to? And also thinking about this from different points of view. So I'm going to bring in David Henderson first of all, Hargreaves Lansdown. What should we pay attention to, particularly in the context of national collaboration?
Hi, Julia. Yeah, I think this point has been made a few times, but the collaboration approach. So like Julian and Stuart both touched on, it's great to see so many different regions on this one event rather than us just trying to focus or pitch one region. I think it's when we're looking at national collaboration or the clusters, the Kalifa report already highlighted each cluster has their own specialisms, be it lending, cyber, AI, and each cluster will have its own its own narrative as well. But I think working together is key to this. This isn't a case of each cluster trying to compete against London. I think sometimes we get too bogged down in what's happening in London. Yes, there is a lot of fintech in London, so a third of revenue comes from London, as the report said. But areas like Scotland don't focus on how close or how far they are from London, sorry, and they're doing perfectly well. I think the collaboration is about us focusing on national connectivity and creating that web of fintech regions and clusters to create a message that shows we're competing internationally rather than trying to compete with each other. I think companies like, I'm not just saying this because he's sat on the panel, but companies like Whitecap and Deloitte as well have been really helpful in this work. So Hargreaves Lansdown, when we've started getting involved in FinTech West or started getting involved in how to grow the cluster here, those were two key companies that have helped us. So Julian in particular has been very open to showing us what's going on in FinTech North, what's been a success there, and how it's worked in terms of funding, who they need to connect to, how you create that structure and governance. And equally, Deloitte have been useful in that sense as well, making introductions to FinTech Scotland, who have a clear established structure in place. So it's that openness, I think, and understanding that we all need to work on this together. The UK will all benefit from that rising tide if we get this right, rather than trying to compete against each other, but also appreciating the fact that each region and each cluster does have its own message and own strengths as well. So that's locally what we've seen from Hargreaves Lansdown point of view. We try to collaborate ourselves and have that same approach. So we've reached out to the key players in regions, the universities, FinTech West, the technology festivals. So we're trying to take that approach of collaboration locally as well to try and help and support and grow the ecosystem in the Southwest. So hopefully that's given you a feel for what we feel is important and for how Hargreaves Lansdown is supporting the region as well.
Certainly. Thank you so much for your thoughts on that, David, because it's really important that we do hear from the business point of view, those who have been successfully growing businesses and then also reaching out locally and internationally and, of course, as you say, nationally as well. And yeah, absolutely a call out to the Whitecaps of this world who have been helping with some of the insights and the collaboration around that too. Thank you. Really appreciate your thoughts on that. I'd love to bring in Richard Carter, who's from Equiniti Credit Services. FinTech North is the badge of pride that he wears, I understand. So listening to your remarks in the panel as well, Richard, invite you to respond, but also paying attention to the context of skills development. If I could ask you to lean your comments that way as well.
Yeah, thanks very much indeed, Julia. So as Julia said, I'm Managing Director of the Equiniti Credit Services. Equiniti is a FTSE listed business, about 500 million of revenue. But that doesn't mean that I'm a corporate man, though. I founded, bought, sold, closed, merged, and of course built technology businesses in the financial services space over the last 30 years. So I think to that extent, I'm a typical entrepreneur. And what I mean by that is that I've been at the very, very sharp end of founding businesses. And the sharp end for me is not just about losing your job if it goes wrong, but a lot of personal pain and financial investment that goes with that. So I'm pleased to say I'm also an active investor in the sector as well, and we work very closely with Julian and the team on FinTech North. So I'd like to talk a bit more about skills, and I guess like a lot of us, I've sat in fundraising pitches for startups and scale-ups, and I've listened to some really inspiring stories and some compelling propositions, but under closer scrutiny, they simply don't pass the test. They don't get beyond the twinkle in somebody's eye. But when you think about that and you look at the reasons, it's because fundamentally the business plan doesn't stack up. They're uninvestable. Lack of attention to simple things like the total addressable market, what the go-to-market strategy is, what a cash burn forecast is, what a forecast is fundamentally, something that's been stress tested for anything other than a really optimistic sales funnel. So what you see are many great ideas, but just poor execution, and they never really get off the starting block. They never get to that first stage. So if that's the problem, what's the solution? Well, it's clearly about skills, and there's a constant debate about skills in the UK, and we've talked about it today in parts. It's covered in the Kalifa report, and there are loads of sessions this week about it. But that conversation is typically about the university's ability to deliver tech-enabled candidates, or opening up visa schemes for people to come to the country. I don't think that's enough, though. If we're really going to successfully launch and scale more organizations, I think we need to increase the business studies element of courses. And if you like, provide individuals with an entrepreneur starter pack, supported by mentoring programs, and perhaps the ability for them to get some business work placement opportunities rather than just tech work placement ones. So in the meantime, though, how do we go about addressing this gap? Well, obviously incubators and accelerators are incredibly important here, but really not everybody's got access to them. They're typically clustered in the south, generally difficult for the socially or financially excluded to access. And so people just don't get a look in at that. Mentoring, though, I think it's got a very significant role to play and can bridge the gap across the country. So I think there are a number of threads to this, ranging from informal mentoring to more organized schemes. Now, in the north, as I'm sure there are elsewhere in the country, there are a series of formal mentoring schemes that run, including one that's jointly founded by North Invest and RSM. Here, the objective is to get startup and scale-up businesses to the point where they're investor ready, and then showcase them to the angels and investors. And if you like, kind of matchmaking along the way. Now, this doesn't have to be just an external initiative, though, of course. Within our own business, within Equiniti, we've got a mentoring scheme as well. I guess loads of organizations have. Now, that typically is looking at how you develop individuals within the organization. But I think we should also look at how do we develop them out of our organization? How do we get these people to go and create a new business that brings value to the UK? So what if it's outside of the company? Bring it on. We're all going to benefit on the journey. So my perspective on skills is that it's not really just about the tech. It's about the business too. And I think if it takes a community to raise if it takes a village to raise a child, I'd argue it takes a community to raise a tech business, and we've all got a role to play.
Richard, thank you very much. Really, really very crystal clear remarks there as well. And I do keep in our work with Innovate Finance and then also with our clients, it's interesting to see how many people are increasingly thinking about the value between organizations and the business education, partly because a lot of people out of the industry, we talk about the 48, the average age being 48, are actually also investors themselves. Those who've exited businesses have enormous value to bring back in again. Really great food for thought. Thank you. Really appreciate those remarks. Thank you very much indeed. Richard Carter from Equiniti Credit Services. And last but not least, who has been sitting listening very calmly to all of the remarks above in this session, is Geoff Waters from Million, I don't know why I keep calling you Millennium Labs, but it's Million Labs, SuperTech West Midlands. We've heard the reference to low code. So Geoff, I'd love to welcome you in. Having heard the remarks on the panel, what should we also be paying attention to when we think about international trade and investment as well? Keen to hear your thoughts on that.
Sure, no problem at all. So Million Labs, one of the fastest growing hubs of startups in the world, coming on to compete with the likes of Y Combinator now. We're based in the Midlands and we invest in startup companies all over the place. It gives us two things that I should caveat everything I'm going to say with right now. We're a startup focused company, so we're horrifically optimistic, which perhaps some of the other organizations here might not be. And we also have a bit of a lens which is driven by, I think only 20% of the startups we work with are here, so everybody else is all over the world. I checked earlier on, we worked with 24 fintechs in the last 18 months, and they were based in Russia, Japan, Ghana, Mexico, Nigeria, Australia, the US, and Canada, right? So I think one of the interesting things is that we often perceive the kind of challenges of taking our kind of fintechs into the international market as being around proposition, around technology, around resourcing. And I think, you know, an interesting thing that's happened in the last 18 months, 2 years, is those barriers seem to just not be there. You know, startups working in Mexico are working on the same things as we're working on here, same propositions. They're not behind us. They're working with the same technology, or at least near technology to what we have here. And because everybody has become a lot more happy to use remote resources, and I know that because we're one of them, our company is one of them, the resourcing gap is diminishing. You know, the ability to find people that can help you build a fintech in another country is diminishing. The ability for fintechs here to work with resources in other countries has diminished. And so I find that really interesting. I think where we see challenges still for fintech organizations, there's certainly still a challenge in terms of payments. You know, if you want to pay a Russian developer, which we do from time to time, it's still a challenge. There is certainly challenges in terms of access to capital in other countries, investment in other countries. Although we're an investor, we're investing in a Kenyan startup right now. Why are we doing that? Because we can do more good in Kenya than we can do here. With our money, it goes a lot further. And so I think investors are taking a more of a world view than perhaps they did previously. So maybe that barrier is coming down. But I think the two barriers that we see that talk to what the panelists have talked to before, going back to what Rebecca said at the top of the tree, top of the show, you know, there is definitely a cultural barrier. You can't assume that what you do in the UK translates to Japan. So when we go to Japan, yes, we need somebody to translate the language for us, but we also need somebody to translate what we do culturally for Japan. And you can stereotype people and make a mistake that way. You can also massively underestimate those cultural differences. The other difference, which I think is at the heart of fintech and any regulated sector, I got asked this question by a Mexican startup the other day: is my startup fit for Mexican fintech law? How the hell would I know? No idea, you know. And although the commonality in reg, you know, around prudence, conduct, security of money, and information is the same, it's the devil of the detail in regulation that gets you. And so finding, as a fintech here in the UK, and we are a fintech, you know, Million Labs is a fintech, really, we're an investor, we deal in money. Finding partners on the ground in countries that you're trading in is fundamental to being able to jump out of the geography we're in. And having partners in the fintech organizations up and down the country that can help you do that, can help you find partners in other countries that can lead you through cultural differences, lead you through regulatory differences. That's how you break out the UK. It's easy to talk to somebody in Russia now. It's easy to sell something to somebody in Russia, and the tech is universal, but you've still got to get through those cultural barriers and that regulatory barrier. So it's great to hear that, you know, the DIT and others have resources that help us do that.
Wonderful. Great. Thank you so much for your thoughts on that, Joff. It's really important. And it's interesting while you were talking, because, and actually while others were talking as well, is about some comments coming into the chat. And I would invite others to chime in. One is to all our panelists, do please post your contact details, because we're having requests in from the audience. And thank you for that, for contact details. So do take a moment before we go into the last few moments as well. And then also some notes of support, actually, about the fact that this isn't about competing within the UK, but actually very much on an international scale, and the international collaboration as well. And some other people are chiming in saying, yes, some contact details worth sharing there as well. I just want to take a last couple of minutes really to do the right thing, which is to go back to Peter at Innovate Finance. So Peter, just your kind of final thoughts, if you would, regarding you know, for everything you've heard. If you were to have a call to action, we've had some thoughts there from Joff about investment, about international skills, about international collaboration. We've been thinking about the skills around business. We've been thinking about the regional pride and also appetites to collaborate to raise all ships for the UK as well. Peter, your final thoughts, please, as we finish this incredible panel. I've just been taking tons of notes. Really useful. Peter, back to you, if you would.
I would say that you know, now is the time to take advantage of some of the national, international opportunities. There was a comment, I think, in the comments from Julian about, and reflected by others. You know, it's not a question of, you know, regionally looking at what we offer versus region. It's looking at what we offer versus international centres for fintech. And I think it was Kalifa who said yesterday, fintech should be described as a sector that offers transformational change to wider society. So which of our businesses are able to do that, and how are we taking advantage of that and using those opportunities to develop our products and services? So I just leave with the thought, now is the time to move forward.
It definitely does feel like now is the time. I just want to take a moment to thank all of our panelists. I set you a very tough challenge, which was to say you have a time clock on you to share some really insightful thoughts. So grateful for all the preparation that's gone into that and the thoughts you've been sharing. Lots of food for thought, lots of opportunity for collaboration, and certainly lots of opportunity for international growth and scale as well. My name's Julia Streets. I've been the CEO of, I still am in fact, the CEO of Streets Consulting. We're all about trying to curate, debate, and also to help fintechs grow across the UK. So to everybody who's tuned in, thank you so much. And once again, my final thanks to all our panelists. We really appreciate all your thoughts. Thanks everybody, stay well, see you soon.
Thank you.